I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. McCausland, can you please take roll?
Mrs. Feist.
Here.
Mrs. Headley.
Here.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Here.
Mrs. Janasek.
Here.
Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Present.
Mr. Scalzo.
Here.
Mrs. Turner.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
9 members present.
Thank you. We have a few presentations tonight. The first one we're going to cover is a review of our audit from Cipher & Cipher. And if you guys could come up and, is the mic on? That mic is on? Okay, great.
Evening, board members. Thanks for inviting us here tonight. I'm Steve Cipher, partner of Cipher & Cipher. I have with me one of my partners, Luke Rail. Luke and the staff did the audit this year, and we're here to report on those results. You have a presentation which is behind me and in front of me, so we will use this to follow along, condenses the contents of the report into what we hope is a understandable format. The school code calls for annual audit of the district statement. In this case, it's the year ended June 30th, 2023. The important thing for the board to keep in mind is that everything in the financial statement is the responsibility of Dr. Walsh and Mr. McCausland and his staff. Our responsibility is to the school board to use U.S. governmental auditing standard to conduct an audit. And the purpose of audit is to tell you, in our opinion, whether the financials represent where you were at the end of the year and how you got there. If you look at the bottom of page 2, our opinion is unmodified. That's exactly what the school board should expect to see. Second audit that we do is a single audit. All political subdivisions of the United States, some companies, some nonprofits, which receive more than $750,000 of federal money, have a single audit. And why this is important is that we take an additional look at compliance with laws and regulations and your internal control at both the financial statement level and your federal program level. If you look at the bottom of 3, you see that there are no instances of non-compliance with laws and regulations and no significant deficiencies that we would report to the board. The particular programs that were looked at, Special Education Cluster and the Education Stabilization Fund. General Fund last year brought in some $97.6 million, spent a bit more than that, 98.1, such that your fund balance went down by $536,000. At the end of the year, 24,189,000 is the total fund balance. The board, along with the administration, has set aside various fund assignments, and the difference between the $24 million and the $5.8 million that is unassigned are those assigned. The financials are divided into 3 parts. Fund level statements, we've just talked about those. We'll talk a bit about the government-wide in a moment, but page 11 talks about the management's discussion and analysis. This is a letter, school directors, from your superintendent and your business manager. It's addressed to you, it's addressed indirectly to the public. It's designed for the non-expert reader of the statement. Gives you financial highlights for the year, gives you an overview of the statement, and it gives you a discussion of what are known as future economic factors, things that your administration believes you need to keep front and center as you conduct your affairs as a school board. It's found at the beginning of the audit report, right behind our opinion, bears careful reading. The government-wide net position is the net worth of the school district on a long-term basis. We're counting every asset we own, chairs, buildings, parking lots, whatever. We're counting every debt that we owe. And we're taking the difference between those two numbers, and we're upside down by $115 million. Well, that sounds really awful. However, we would point out to you the biggest single contributor to the negative is your obligation for the PESER's retirement system. There's nothing we can do about it. You have no say in its operation. You have no say in what the current rate's going to be. Absolutely nothing. But it's part of what we owe. And the Governmental Accounting Standards Board believes it's important that we know if we had to close up shop, well, what would it take to do that? The cool thing is when you look at the last 3 years, 2021 and 22, we were 120 million down, 120 million down in 21, 119, but this year we had about a $4 million improvement. Couple of reasons for that. We had a little bit better performance at the PESER's level and so forth. We have seen this in a lot of our school district clients. So this is a very positive thing to look at. When you look at page 13, the number in the very middle of the page, 98,229,000, that's what it cost to do business here last year at Bethel Park School District on a full accrual basis of accounting. And that's what companies use, that's publicly traded companies, and we're indeed a publicly traded company. We don't have any stock, but we're obligated to the shareholders, the stakeholders of the district. So we spent $98,229,000. The next number over at $19 million, that represents money given to you by other places, principally the state and federal government, to run programs on their behalf. Special education, National School Lunch, all of the COVID money that we've experienced the last 3 years is part of that. The net cost of service, $78.8 million. We do get a very small SB, almost $12 million. The net number, $66.8 million, is that what the taxpayers had to pay here to run the school district, help run the school district. That number doesn't mean anything in and of itself, but what we do is tell you to take the 66.8 divided by the 98, and you can see the percentage of cost for our district. 3 years ago was almost 70%, 69.27. Last year it dropped down, and again, we believe that was a function of the COVID money hitting. It went up this year to 68. I can tell you this, I do not believe that these numbers will improve much from what we have. When we turn to page 14, where's our management letter?
It's in different order.
Oh, I skipped it. Management letter is the very last page. We're going to talk about that. Luke is going to cover those items that we feel are important. We'll come back and talk about a couple of other financial items when we're done.
Yeah, the few items there that are highlighted in the management letter that this page you received from us as well. The fund balance, Steve kind of went over that already. We're sitting at just 5.8% of the 23-24 budget. In total, we have around $25 million for different various commitments and assignments. We're in a healthy area as far as that goes. The cafeteria fund, page 2 of the management letter gives a summary of the last 5 years of activity of that fund. You can see in the last 2 years, we've noted a profit. It's kind of been different type of years since COVID happened. Things have gone up and down with various free lunch type things in our prior year. Just principally the reason for the profits to be noted. We recommend keeping in the budget the transfer from the general fund to the cafeteria in the case that these losses would come back like the pre-COVID amounts. GASB 68 and 75, that's on page 3 of the management letter. Those two items relate to our share of the PESER's liability as well as our share of our personal retirement unfunded healthcare liability that we carry on our balance sheet. Comes in at around $27 million, and Beezer's number is $127 million, which is the principal reason why we have that negative long-term net position that you see in most districts. There's other items in the management letter. I won't go through all of them. You already take them at your own time.
What we'll do is take a look at page 14 actually. History of the Peasley's retirement cost, steadily rising for the past 5 years. This year that we're operating is the first time they have chosen to cut the rate. And why would we do that? I don't know. I don't think they should ever cut the rate. If nothing, leave it alone. It's reminiscent of what you all went through with an ill-advised millage reduction a couple of years ago. You're still suffering the consequences of that. Hopefully this doesn't play out the same way. There is some hope. What you see here is the red line at the bottom representing the history of the rate and the small increases that they're projecting through 27. But the funding level, which is the blue bar, the curve down and then back up, they're hoping to get it over 70% by 2027. The interesting thing is if you apply ERISA standard, which if you work for a private company, that's the standard that governs your 401k, an endangered plan is 80% funded. So we're an endangered plan, we're part of that, there's nothing we can do about it. But the key thing is you have to make sure that over time you generate the proper revenues to do the things you need to do. And to that end, what we'd like to do is thank the business office. The audit goes very smoothly, folks. You should be very pleased and happy with that performance. We'd like to also thank the board. We appreciate the opportunity to be your auditors. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer those for you now. You can always call us, and we're glad to talk with you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I would echo Steve's comments. You have a well-run administrative and business office. You do a good job here. Doug does a great job overseeing the office. Sharon does a great job taking care of the books. Not all districts are fortunate in that regard. You do have that. So.
Thank you.
We know. Thank you.
Thanks again. Next up, Site Logic. You can give us an update on the Phase 3 renovation project.
Yes, good evening. Again, my name is Mike Arnold with Site Logic. With me tonight is Rochelle Fennell, and in addition, Andrew Campanera from Hayes Design Group is here as well. So tonight we do want to discuss a couple of things. Start off by talking about Phase 3, the scope, the phasing plan, and the cost associated with Phase 3, and then Rochelle's going to give an update on Phase 2, which is currently in progress. So as it relates to Phase 3, over the last couple of months, we've had the opportunity to confirm the balance of the scope. You know, after we had identified what Phase 2 looked like, we wanted to confirm what was left. Met with the administration, with Raquel, with Andrew and his group to solidify that so that we could put documents out for bid, rebid basically of that Phase 3 piece. So that's what we've spent a good bit of time over the last couple of months. Did want to review what that general scope is. I don't want to be presumptuous as to your knowledge of what's been happening here over the last 2 years. So what is left to do and what makes up the majority of what Phase 3 looks like is the work in the auditorium, the work in the music wing, and then the gymnasium and that associated lower level, which includes obviously the gym, the locker rooms, the restrooms, and the health suite. So all of those items is what we have spent the last few months continuing to work with the contractors and get some pricing for you. As far as the project as a whole, just to give, again, a refresher of all of that, The yellow area is the Phase 1, and that has been completed and turned over. The shades of blue between navy and I guess light blue there is Phase 2, which is a work in progress. We have completed the dark blue areas. We are working in the lightest blue area there, and then that middle section is slated for this summer. Okay. And then Phase 3 is represented by shades of orange. So we have worked with Raquel quite a bit on determining how do we want to phase this out, and if there is some overlap associated with phase 2 and 3, which we were able to find some overlap for efficiencies. So the darker area, the darker orange area, is slated for the September to March timeframe as far as physical construction. Procurement would occur prior to that. And that includes the areas,
Locker room,
rooms, yeah.
health rooms, fitness room, new entrance.
And then the medium shade of orange includes more of the auditorium area and the arts. And then finally, a little bit of overlap between the auditorium and the gym would occur in the summer of 2025. So all told, you know, all three phases, your entire project would be wrapped up for the start of the 25-26 school year. So specifically, just to identify some of the items that are part of Phase 3, obviously new auditorium seats, theatrical lighting and sound system, new finishes. All of the areas get new mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection throughout. Acoustic wall panels, doors and hardware, and a new chairlift at the stage. And there's other items, but this is just to give you a general scope. Music wing, sound panels, new casework equipment, finishes throughout, all the MEPs as well. We have some enlarged windows that go in there. There's a reconfiguration of this area as well, so we'll be moving some walls. New restroom, doors, hardware, and sound system upgrades in the music wing as well. And then in the gymnasium, new gym equipment, the bleachers, new acoustical wall and ceiling panels, new divider curtain, painting, and electrical and fire protection in that area as well. And then in some of the ancillary space, locker rooms, health suite, fitness and restrooms, we've got new wall configuration there as well. Ceramic tile, new lockers, benches, windows, finishes throughout, and of course, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and casework. So those are basically the scope items associated with each one of those areas. As far as the costs are concerned, just to go back again, Phase 1 totaled $12,700,000. That is complete. Phase 2, again, in progress. We've turned over the one phase. We're in 2B now. That was at $23,809,000. Phase 3 currently is at $8,149,760. We are still working on we're getting some pricing back and forth. It's not going to fluctuate very much from that. There's a couple of credits, a couple of ads that hopefully will just wash that out. And we are looking actually to try to get some better pricing over the next week or so. Soft costs added to that, and your total project cost of a total of $50 million. As far as the Phase 3 is concerned, we had, as you know, we bid all of Phase 2 and Phase 3 at one time back in, I think it was October of 2022. So we were able to determine what was left for Phase 3, and at that time it was about 7.8. So we feel pretty good about this number considering the hyperinflation that we've experienced, and you know, so that's a good sign at this point. We have incorporated some value engineering. We, as of today, you know, even as late as today, we had some discussions as it related to the sound and theatrical lighting in the auditorium. We were able to look at some alternative manufacturers to save a substantial amount of money for the district. And that meeting went very well. And there's some other items we've been working with Andrew and his team to try to make sure that the costs are appropriate. The one thing that's not included in the pricing here is the re-roofing. That's been a separate project. We have received some pricing on it, but I think we're waiting on some grants and some other opportunities there. We have provided an estimated draw schedule to show how the project would draw out. As far as the phasing is concerned, again, we're taking into great consideration the educational functionality, making sure that we're going to provide the best possible scenario, less disruption as we possibly can, as we have up to this point. So I'll pause there. I know that was a lot in a short period of time, but just wanted to give you an opportunity to comment before we give an update on Phase 2. Any questions or comments?
I guess just from a timing standpoint, you know, we've been talking about some potential grant funding. Do we need to do any of that activity before we award Phase 3?
So yeah, that would be an issue. So the grants that we're talking about actually is in the governor's budget from this year, not next budget, but the current budget for school repairs, renovations, upkeep, and so forth. The one item that we definitely are pursuing that fits the criteria that is established by the governor is the roof for IMS, which is why it's not in Phase 3 at all, is because we can't proceed with any contracting or deal-making on that until the grant would be secured from the state funding source. And there are some other things that after the weekend, looking closely at the specifications we could pursue would be things like the chairlift for accessibility reasons and any other safety upgrades. So I'm comfortable going forward, recommending that the board goes forward with Phase 3 and leaves the roof project out of this phase, waiting for that funding to come through from the state. I can't sit here today and promise that just because we ask that we're going to get it. It's a competitive process. There's only so much in that bucket, and there'll be a lot of systems pursuing that because it's more than just schools. You can be a community or municipality pursuing that same funding stream for community centers. So we're going to do our best to make it a compelling argument to get that roof funded because it's just about at the end of its natural life, its time, and everything else about the building is going to be brand spanking new. So sum up, a lot of words to say, let's go with Phase 3 as bid and leave the roof out of it and get that done through this funding stream. If not this year, then next.
Just to follow up on Dr. Walsh's comments, there is a lot of competition. We have someone on our staff that works in government affairs, you know, specifically about grants, and it's wild right now. You know, everybody's, you know, trying to jump in. We're trying to stay on the cutting edge of that and informing the district at every step of the way as to where we can help out in that regard. But it is a very competitive process.
So just to make sure we clear, so there would be a motion next week on the agenda to match that number to approve, basically them moving forward with Phase 3. Simply put, as you recall, this is a GISA project, so it's not to exceed that amount. That's the amount that we would sort of guarantee that the cost of Phase 3 would be, and they would then proceed with the plans, the acquiring materials and so forth, and putting it into the scope, et cetera. That's been advertised. That amount's been advertised. Actually, a little bit higher than that amount's been advertised, just to be safe. And so you'd be safe next week then to approve that Phase 3 project. I'd asked Mr. McCausland to put together some projections on how this would work into our borrowing capacity, work into our repayment plans, and how poor we would make ourselves by putting all this debt onto the district. So if it's okay, we're going to defer Doug until we finish the SiteLogic presentation, because I think we have some Phase 2 to talk about real quick, and then you can give us the details. Okay?
Okay. So we've moved into 2B, which is the second floor above Phase 1, mostly classrooms at this point. So we've done the demo, that's complete. We have started the framing, the MEP rough-ins has started, roughing in the plumbing for the restrooms. In addition to that, we're also at night working on the punch list items in Phase 2A, since we are on night shift. So just a couple pictures. Again, this is ending up of the demo, kind of showing you wrapping up with taking off the adhesive for the flooring. So again, that is all wrapped up. Roughing in, like I said, the walls, the carriers, and the restrooms. You see the ductwork there that's being put up in a classroom. Is that it? No? Yeah, so really not exciting yet. A couple more months, I'll be back with some better pictures. But yeah, if you guys are welcome to tour it if you'd like. Anytime, just let us know, and be happy to walk you guys through it.
One thing I did want to add, every once in a while in our industry, we get a surprise visit from OSHA, which is the safety component. And they visited us, I guess it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and had no issues, which is very, very encouraging. Safety is always number one on a project, and we were happy to report that we didn't have any issues there, so.
So I believe you've got a big project coming up over the summer, right, with removing the
Yes.
ramp? And so is that, with the timing we've given you from the calendar standpoint, everything looks manageable?
Yeah, I wasn't sure where you guys ended up on.
Yeah, they've got that extra week, so we're,
Yeah, anything we get would be greatly appreciated.
Every day will be helpful.
Yeah. But we are constantly talking about that. There will even be times we'll be working 2 shifts in order to get that done. But yeah, we're already gearing up with everybody, making sure everybody has everything in line, the materials are here. So it's just, we hit the ground running as soon as you guys are out for the summer.
And that was my next question. I'm the elevator person because I think everybody needs to get from the gym to the second floor. So are we online to get that elevator in for the start of school on August 29th?
That is what we are
And
working
it is
on.
on
Yep.
site.
It's not on site yet. It will be on site. Late spring is my goal to have it in storage. It won't be on site till we're actually ready to put it in.
Right, but it'll be in the county, per
Yes.
se.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and paid for. Yeah, nope, they know that. We've already had that discussion with them.
Because we had a lot of problems with the elevator that goes to the gym.
We did, yep, and then we've already had that discussion to make sure that what is on the shop drawings is what is fabricated, unlike last time. So we've had that discussion, not only with them, but the demo guy is critical to this, and so is the mason. So those are the ones that we have concentrated on for that stair tower. Like I said, the other main area will be your kitchen. The kitchen equipment is already sitting in storage, so that is already ready to go. So like I said, everyone, even though we're in this phase, everyone is already gearing up for the summer because it will be quite intense.
Okay, thank you.
just want to quick interject a note. I think Mrs. Sutton and the administration over at IMS have plans, should the ramp need a last coat of paint or something isn't completely finished, we can still start school on time because there are other stairwells in the building, so it's not like we're going to have IMS dictate everybody else's summer schedule or start of school.
Yeah, I
We
mean, you'll have the
plans.
stair tower and the elevator. You also have the elevator that's already working now too as well, so.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Doug, you were going to just give us a quick update, if you don't mind
Sure.
taking over the microphone, please.
I have started working with your bond counsel. You do have you have a couple options, and I think the way we're going to approach this is that we need to put this into a full long-range look at what your finance look like. But you do have the capacity, if you chose to borrow the remaining for the elementary school and for phase 3 of IMS. That capacity sits there. It would mean your debt service would become your second highest expenditure next to staff in your budget. You would probably have about annual costs for debt service around $15 million annually, which is pretty steep. But I think we can look at other options. Perhaps you could use some of your capital reserve money or your money that has been committed in your fund balance in the general fund for capital projects to help fund a portion of this IMS project. So I think we need to look at the different options you have. The other thing that's really going to be important moving forward is we are anticipating a number of retirements before this new school opens. It's really going to depend on how committed you are to reducing staff, because staff is your number one expenditure moving forward. It's going to depend on, it may depend on things like full-day kindergarten, whether you're going to defer that for a year or two until you were able to phase in the millage. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, I'm just saying those are options you need to think about. Class size is always a determining factor, and I know we've had a lot of lively debates about class size with this board. So these are all factors that are going to play into how you can fund this project moving forward. There's also going to be things like overhead for the existing buildings, how quickly you're going to dispose of them. Will there be money coming back to the district from the sale of properties and buildings? So that could also be used to offset some of the costs of these projects. So there are other sources there as well. You also have operational savings that you're going to be able to achieve because you're going to have newer, more efficient buildings. You're not going to have the same number of buildings to maintain. So your overall maintenance and operation costs should come down over time. So these are all things that have to be built into the model. I don't think you're looking at funding these projects, either one, any further. You have enough money to continue on with the elementary school as it is. And we had originally planned to do that second phase somewhere around late August, early September, probably. Rates are looking better. The Fed's looking at cutting rates, so that's good for us as far as borrowing goes. So there are a lot of obviously unknowns yet and a lot of variables we need to consider, but I think our strategy is going to be to build that model this spring, come up with the best strategy on how we best fund these projects moving forward. I think we're past the point of should we do them or not do them. I think you have to do them. You've made that commitment and you've made that statement to the public, and I think that's where you're going. I think it's the right thing to do for the kids in the community too. So,
Yeah. I would say that, we still have a pretty robust capital fund budget and other, allocated funds that, as we look into the future, we may not really have those expenses. And so we've built up our capital fund for a rainy day to repair existing buildings. We've made the decision we're not going to repair our buildings, so I think we should look as much as possible of diverting that to pay for the phase 3.
one of the strategies we also used was we did capitalize some of the interest in the first couple of years so we could
Right.
phase in the millage.
That's
And
true,
we'll probably continue that strategy to some extent. Probably right now, we're looking at a 2 to 3 year phase in of the millage as it looks right now. So.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Good, thanks. Thank you. Next up, Massaro, update.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me or may have forgot who I was. How do you forget this face, huh? My name is R.C. Schultz. I'm with Massaro. So, exciting thing is, construction has started on your brand-new elementary school. I don't know how exciting it will be for some people, but, so we started off, we got the site established, got the construction fencing up, separating the building area from the community, from the existing school. All attempts were made to block off. There was a lot of paths and trails through those woods that the neighborhood used. So a lot of attention was paid, and a lot of effort was to protect people from wandering down those trails and into the project site. So land clearing efforts have started, as I'm sure many of you have noticed, which generated a huge pile of wood chips. It was there for quite some time. It was a heck of a pile. I had to take a picture.
Yeah, it was big.
It's not every day you see something like that. So kind of a before and after, and just to note, this picture and the next one were captured from the camera that the district put up on NAM. So it'll kind of give you a reference here moving forward of the vantage point this gives. It'll be a great, throughout the construction of the project, because the building will be basically right there where the existing parking lots are. So you got a real bird's eye view. But anyway, so this is before, this is after. So looks a little bit different over there, and it'll continue to look different as we move forward. ENS controls to protect the local streams and the wetlands from the construction activity and the muddy runoff. So those were placed in there. One of the initial phases of the ENS controls is establishing the new sedimentation pond, which is down on the existing soccer field. So they're doing that. We established our construction entrance, which will be the new entrance into the property, into the school off of King School Road. bringing our Hall Road in, our temporary construction roads, and the new road across the stream. So there's an existing stream crossing on the property. We got that in place. And now we have moved into our big activity here for the next several months is just moving dirt. It's not real exciting, but it is progress. So we've begun that activity. And just for size and scale, that truck right there, the big earth-moving truck, I mean, the tires are taller than me. And that's how much, that's the hillside we've already moved to. Moving quite a bit. Overall progress and upcoming work, like I said, we're going to continue the bulk cutting and filling here. That'll be couple months, certainly throughout the spring. There's a series of 4 retaining walls. Walls 1 and 2 will be going in here shortly, completing the sediment pond, beginning wall 5, and installing the detention tanks, which will eventually capture all the storm water on the site. So far, we've gone 20 days. It's a couple days behind. We've gone like 22 days without zero recordable incidents. SiteLogic was talking about OSHA. That's one of the things we're aware of. Also, they have visited quite a few projects in and around the area. Not that's why we pay attention to safety. We pay attention to safety all the time, but. And our baseline schedule, we're currently working on that and getting that developed. So hopefully in the next 4 weeks we'll have that developed and signed off, and then we could really start tracking where we are with the project. So that was my quick 2 cents and update. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'll let you get back at it. Anyone?
Got to believe the weather has been a huge help. I mean, if it was snowing and raining the whole time.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely. Absolutely.
You guys are making
Couldn't-
huge
we-
progress.
Knock on wood, we couldn't ask for better weather.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thanks, RC.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
So I'd like to announce that we had executive session earlier today for personnel, other legal matters, and to receive information. And there's going to be a presentation on School Director Appreciation Month. I didn't think anybody appreciated us.
Here it comes. So the month of January in Pennsylvania is set aside as School Director Recognition Month. And we let the whole month go by and built up to the anticipation of being able to recognize you now that it's halfway through February. But school board directors are elected to govern and to make informed decisions on behalf of our public schools for the benefit of students and communities. In honor of their time and dedication all year long, January is designated School Director Recognition Month. As public servants, school directors devote hours each month to board business, from voting on budgets, adopting policy, conducting comprehensive planning. School boards make key decisions that drive public education in a complex and changing environment. Board service is unpaid, and school directors are often motivated to pursue the role out of a desire to benefit their community. The vast majority of school directors indicate their primary reason for serving is to give back or contribute to public education or to improve the educational outcomes for students. There are neighbors, co-workers, fellow parents, and friends. When our public schools are strong, our whole community is strengthened. So we recognize our school directors here in Bethel Park for their commitment and effort. We support the public servants by showing our appreciation for all they do to help our students and schools succeed. And I will share your certificates to replace on the fridge last year's certificates. Mr. Christensen.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of your administration and our faculty and students for your service and for keeping us moving forward and making the heavy lifts that you have to make, like Phase 3.
Thank you. So this meeting is our committee meeting to decide to discuss what we'll be voting on next week and to put things on the consent agenda. But before we get into the committee items, are there any public comments on the agenda items? Two minutes. Anybody online?
No one online.
Okay. Mr. Scalzo, can you take the curriculum committee items?
Item 1, there's a presentation by Mr. Villani and Ms. Grimm on flag football as a spring club activity at Bethel Park High School.
Joe Villani, 309 Church Road. I live there.
So you sleep here.
I'll take it, 2 minutes.
You sleep in your office. That's what
I
you're
do,
saying,
pretty
right?
much.
Yeah. Okay.
So I am here tonight in representation of myself and Mrs. Grimm. We had a unique opportunity. Thank you, Tony. Unique opportunity to be offered to us. Many schools, this is now the third year, the NFL sponsored girls flag football. Many schools up north have started, initiated teams. It's a spring sport. Right now, it's just like a club and activity that's sponsored, very much as we inherited through the Special Olympics, our bocce team, Coach Pictionary. But with that, no, we have an opportunity. It's granted and funded by the Steelers. They give us $3,000 in startup cost and then $1,500 the following year, then eventually it becomes self-sustainable. What it is, it's 5-on-5 flag football. It's a spring sport that will start up in mid-March. And again, the season goes April, 5 games, and then a playoff championship, which is held at Acrisure Stadium with co-hosts by the Steelers. Lots of students, notoriously Bethel Park had a Powder Puff game for years. Interest was kind of lost in the sense the juniors were very upset of losing every year to the seniors. But I'll tell you what, flag football has made some major strides nationally on the level, and then locally, it's really been sponsored around major cities of football. So right now, the East, around Philadelphia, and the Eagles are really boasting the programs, and now Pittsburgh is. There's about 50 schools right now in the area. Some of the names of North Allegheny, Seneca Valley, Ambridge, Moon, just to name a few, and they're really trying to expand into the South Hills. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. We do have a bunch of girls that are interested. Because it is not an official WPIAL or PIAA sanctioned sport, there's no really constricting rules about participation of who can do it. They're looking to practice twice a week. There will be games on Sundays. Typically, these games are played at division rival fields. So there's 5 or 6 contests. We would host one of those. Typically, the games are played side by side. They map the cones out on a turf field. The NFL will provide the officials. We would have to decide as a school if we would provide transportation like any other club activity or extracurricular. But again, it's 5-on-5 flag football. They would then have a team of anywhere from 8 to 15 girls. Again, the money we receive for this could be go towards startup costs, coaches, and any other incurred fees for the first years as we start to get this. Their hope is obviously to continue to grow this, and then eventually, once they reach 100 schools in the area, they can petition the WPIAL to eventually become a sanctioned WPIAL and then PIAA sport. I don't see this slowing down. It has a lot of momentum behind it, and it's something that I know, and just putting some feelers out, we've had some interest. So looking here tonight for the blessing to pilot this team. This year, we would have to name and put a coach forward for March for the mandatory training, and then we would hopefully, like I said, start a team if we needed to have tryouts or how that went from there. But we would then plan and go from there with the blessing of the board to start this. So any questions from me specific about logistics or things there?
Do we have a coach?
We don't yet. I'm waiting for the blessing, but we'll put feelers out as soon as we do. Just asking students about the interest, people got a little excited and people started asking questions about it right away. And we've already had people say that if something started, I would be interested in doing this. So, but no one's ID'd or penciled in for this spot yet. But.
Do we have a view of, what the cost of the program would be, fully funded with coaches, equipment, transportation, what it is, and what part would be the school district obligation versus what would be, through fundraising? Is there that kind of a business plan that's been put behind it?
They don't have the, per se, ironed out all the details, but we've kind of looked at those rough costs and we've shared it with HR and business manager over there, and we've asked those questions as well. So every year they will provide the uniforms and the flags. So that is not a cost that we will have to do. And again, the initial $3,000 outside of the flags, the students will provide the cleats and the mouthpiece. So there's really no additional cost to us. When we do host an event, it's field fees. So if it's Sunday, typically we have a custodian and security guard. There's not a major setup. They do pay for the officiating crews. And again, we do have the self-travel form, so whether this is a self-travel to a local field, if our field is beneficial, we could host many and then we can curb that cost. So we're looking at a security guard and a custodian on a Sunday at their hourly rate. We typically have that anyway with events or cross events. It would be outside on turf fields. If we use the stadium, again, there's not much setup and game manager checks for us. Transportation-wise, it would be the cost. If we did elect to do a minibus, it would be the driver and cost. If it wasn't like many clubs just self-drive or do that with parents to games, that would be a decision we made as a district. Outside of that, the coaching stipends, it'd be a recommendation like an extracurricular activity. So using those funds, it could be anywhere from $500 to $750 a coach, no more than $1,000 to $1,500 a year. That would be sustained in that third year going on. And if it did become a sport, then it could be evaluated whether it enters, in one sense, the WIPIAL to enter into the sports realm with funding, but it would be funded through our activity funds, and we could fundraise for different things and warm-up suits and things for these students to make sure that they, feel and have that experience of this club activity.
Okay. And then coaching staff looks something like, soccer or something, head coach and assistant coach?
It could be, head coach, assistant coach, and there's no JV or freshman, so it would just be limited to the varsity squad with 1 to 2 coaches.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Number 2, acceptance of donation from the NFL, and that's at $3,000. Any discussion? I'd like to recommend placing this on the consent agenda. Number 3, presentation by Dr. Walsh on the midpoint review and updated strategic plan. Document will be available on our website for public review prior to adopting the updated plan at the board meeting in March.
Well, thank you, Mr. Scalzo. Good evening again. And at your tables this evening is a draft copy of a revision. Let me back up and tell the story from the beginning. Back in the spring of 2021, the board sort of commissioned the administration to develop with a strategic planning steering committee that would analyze our needs and our opportunities, and with input from internal and external stakeholders to develop the direction that we would want the district to take, the kind of district we would want to be by the completion of a 5-year cycle in 2026. Here we are in spring of 2024, and we're halfway through that time period. We've completed 2.5 years of that plan, and as we're obligated by the state to submit an updated comprehensive plan, it was the perfect opportunity for me and the administration to revisit the strategic plan to see that we're still on track with what we intended for ourselves, and to maybe celebrate the accomplishments in the first 2.5 years. I'll start by saying that there was a lot that was put into that plan back in 2021. There were over 50 different action steps or goals. broken into 6 categories, broad categories, and in those, each of those broad categories, sort of a vision that we wanted to achieve, as well as specific goal statements of what we wanted the district to be or to look like in 2026. So there was a lot that had been accomplished. It was also evident that there were some things on that list too that were perhaps too ambitious, maybe not in line with other things that we had suggested for ourselves in terms of staffing, for instance. We had talked in this original strategic plan about having a streamlined plan for transitioning our staff to 2026, matching our enrollment and staffing to our budget. And so there were things in that plan like additional teachers for social studies, for instance, that are not in our radar anymore. We're not thinking like that. We're not headed that direction. So in bringing forward to the board for your consideration a revision of that plan, a midpoint review, there has been some action items that have been removed because they didn't line up with where we were or where we wanted to be in 2026 anymore. Compared to where we were in 2021. And there have been some things that were added to the plan because of maybe in 2021 we weren't talking about artificial intelligence in education. We are now. We weren't talking about, in 2021, computer science standards, but we should have been. So there were some very glaringly missing items from our strategic plan that needed to be added. So we took the opportunity of the midpoint review to prepare an updated version. What's next for us through the next 2.5 years? What else do we need to do to get us to that vision we established for ourselves in 2026? I prepared just for the board's consideration an executive summary of the document. On one side of the executive summary, you're going to see the remaining action steps with the additional action steps that were included in the plan, and on the back side, just a quick summary of what items were added and what items were removed or deferred. One of the big obvious changes is that we went from 6 buckets of goals down to 5 buckets. We moved the curriculum and instruction goal and took out of that and made its own bucket our STEAM and innovation goal. Technology and innovation really took a back seat to some of the priorities we had in 2021, like curriculum alignment, curriculum mapping. That was clearly a much greater priority. 2.5 years later, we can say that's ongoing. We're doing pretty well with that work. Let's increase our focus on innovation and STEAM. We also added a specific bucket for finance. We didn't add it, we just focused, finance took operations and added that into it. We took out facilities and infrastructure, that was its own bucket. But after we released the strategic plan, we also developed a facilities master plan, which sort of repeated what was already in the strategic plan. So in the interest of keeping our focus, trying to keep that hedgehog concept focus about our administration, we took the bucket of facilities and infrastructure out and just let that live in its own facilities master plan. That document continues to get updated as work gets done and new problems get added. That list, that facilities master plan keeps evolving. And the other thing we did is we combined what was a student experience goal set and the diversity, equity, and inclusion goal sets. We combined it into one student experience goal set. The direction the board was headed at that in the more recent conversation is that we want a lot of overlap in those goals, a lot of repeated things between those two goal sets, and we also want to make sure that we're paying attention to all student experiences throughout the district. So that has become its own bucket, combined DEI and student experience into one bucket. Some things that were completed or have been successfully accomplished enough to have been removed from the list. They're no longer a strategy that we're following because it's common practice now. Things like curriculum mapping, we're 2.5 years into that project. It's not a target or a strategy for us as much as innovation and STEAM curriculum is become and taking its place. Similarly, we had all-day kindergarten as a strategy for us to work on. We've designed the building to accommodate all-day kindergarten. We've got a bell schedule to work for it. We're kind of moving down that road. We'll be ready when the day comes, so it's no longer a visionary strategy. It's a practical reality for us. And so there are quite a number of action steps that have been removed, and then we added things. You'll see in the red font on that executive summary the things that have been added. We're doing a lot with math instruction and math curriculum. So we've added a focus point for us to make sure over the next 2.5 years, math curriculum is being addressed. The science of reading has become a priority in the state. School districts are obligated to be sure that science of reading training has been implemented throughout the schools to anybody with a reading certificate. So that's been added as a target for us as well. The new STEELS standards, that's science, technology, ecology, environment, and engineering, environmental literacy, and sustainability. Couldn't get that S out of my head. Those standards are coming online now in Pennsylvania. There'll be a testing on them next year, and accountability measures added the year after that. So we've got a target added to our strategic plan to make sure the district is ready for that shift in the science curriculum. We've also added a new focus to be sure that our online cyber students are getting the same benefits of the student experience and the mental health services as our brick and mortar students are. That's a target that's been added to the list. Down in the student experience, the state has produced a requirement for schools to train all staff on maintaining culturally responsive and welcoming school communities. So that's a new target for us because that's a new set of goals that the state has requiring of school in professional development. Mr. Pictionary added maintaining several of his target areas, including making sure we have a plan of transition for staff for 2026, going from 8 buildings to 3. But he added a target area for his department is because of the upcoming work we have to do with our bargaining units. He has a strategy to maintain successful relationships with our bargaining units so that we can get to 2026 with the staff that we envision and maintain them throughout the future. Mr. Cromie's department has contributed some new targets. His Department of One was left out of the original strategic plan, and so he has some targets for him over the next 2.5 years, and we also have technology as its own placeholder in this new strategic plan to say we want to make sure we have the best possible technology resources and tools. What's in our head when we write that is we're talking about new students' information system, perhaps even new accounting software that the business office is thinking about shifting to. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we have, for your consideration over the next 30 days, a more refined strategic plan based on where you started in 2021 and where we want to be in 2026. We were able to get really focused and align ourselves with where the state wants us to be in 2026. And we're also able to add things on there that were somehow overlooked in 2021 when the original plan was written. Everything else is the same. Let me just end with that comment. Everything about the work you did in 2021, the work we did, I should say, in 2021 still exists. We were able to polish it up and make it a little bit more shiny for the next 2.5 years until we get to that final point in 2026 and start over again with a new committee and a new plan and set the new vision. Questions about the draft that you have and the quick synopsis I gave about where we are with this system?
One quick question on especially things that are new. When you look at the old plan, there was quite a bit of text that went into identifying the action steps, which also helped us kind of come up with a framework for how we measure progress.
Mm-hmm.
Has that work been done here also with the things that have been added? Do we need to do that? Is that a part? Do we need to get the committees together again to evaluate these, to come up with a little bit more around the specific actions behind each of these bullets?
Yes, so to be clear, the goals are the same. The 2026 goals are the same. The vision statements that we wrote in 2021 are the same. What's changed are the action steps to achieve the goal. And there were dozens and dozens of action steps under each of the goals. We were able to, in short, we eliminated the ones that are done or no longer relevant, added ones that were missing or foolishly overlooked, or maybe more relevant now, like AI. So there's really nothing else about the work that the committee did in 2021 we haven't messed with their vision, we haven't really messed with the goals. Those things exist. What's changed is the action steps. What is it we're going to do as an administrative team and as a faculty to get you to those goal statements, to get you to achieve those goals as written? Did that just make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
got it.
Yeah. So on the left side of your draft document, you see when you get to each bucket, you'll see the goal on the left in the orange box, and on the right, the action steps.
The action step.
And
So you've
the
added already
execs-
action, so you've combined a few of the buckets
Correct. We combined buckets
and added some action steps
and deleted action steps.
and deleted.
And the action steps are more robustly explained in each section compared to the restatement I gave you in your exec summary.
Okay.
Okay? So we're gonna take feedback on this. This actually, we already had the survey out to our original committee members, the 50-some members of the committee that served on it were given a chance to comment on the directions we should be taking with it. And then we sent draft ideas out to our department chairs, the facilitators and administrators. So we had a lot of input on where we are today. So this has actually been a really great collaborative process.
I have a question. So it looks like there's 2 action steps that are gone from what is now student experience, but I'm kind of confused because it sort of sounds like they're actually still there. So now I'm not sure what's happening. The ones that are developing a policy and specific educational programming to support marginalized students and increasing the percentage of the marginalized population who feels the district encourages values and is supportive of their experience to be in a welcoming school environment. But it does say develop and maintain culturally responsive and welcoming school communities. So I'm trying to figure out how we can not do these 2 things, but still do that, because they seem to be one thing to me.
Yeah. So the culturally relevant and sustaining education, CRSE, is a state requirement now. So I went with that language to affirm to the state that, and what we're going to hear shortly from Mrs. Figlioli's presentation, we're going to have specific obligations to do training with our faculty on that language, that term. There's a lot of supporting information to help us with that. And so I sort of rewrote the action step. I don't think it went away as much as it got revised. That the school culture and the sustainability of that culture is the goal, I think, of the new action step.
So the same objectives, essentially,
In my mind, it's-
will be
it's
happening
about the school,
just
yes.
under what the state is now,
Yes.
instead of how we originally had it written.
I believe so, yes. So
Okay.
those original statements were written by members of, in 2021, by the DEI task force. And now with the state has gotten heavily involved in the schools, in school culture and climate, and they've developed the CRSE, I'm going to get that wrong, culturally relevant and sustaining educational something.
Practice.
Something. Thank you. Practices, yeah, right. So I felt like we had to align with that, which is why those words were revised.
Okay. I was concerned when I saw that those 2 things left, and I was wondering if we were now looking at a rising tide lifting all boats situation. Because while that is true, it doesn't ever address the gap. So yes, everything should be better for everyone, but if we don't address specific students' needs, then we just keep moving this way, and that
Yeah.
gap never closes.
I didn't sense from the original set of goals that there was a target to close the achievement gap in Bethel Park as much it was the.
No, it was the
specifically-
welcoming.
Yes, yeah. the
Feeling
cultural
important.
cultural relevance or the experience that students had in Bethel Park, how they encountered us.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
So one question I have is just on the timing. I know you wanted to have a vote next month, but would it make more sense to take some time for everybody to collect some, comments, some thoughts?
Yeah,
And
there's-
maybe
yeah.
discuss that next time in the
Sure.
next committee, and then vote the following month? I mean,
Sure.
we're not under a time frame, but I think it's important enough that people should look at this, come up with comments, have some debate next time, because there's a lot to unpack here, and, and I'm sure people have a lot of thoughts and need some time to just organize them.
Yeah, for sure. There is no deadline for this. In fact, truly, the strategic plan is our own tool. It's our own guide.
Yeah.
What Mrs. Figlioli is going to present shortly is, on the other hand, under a timeline, and we are on a deadline to get that one done and approved. And I'll say that the things that we've added to this plan, we're going to do anyway. They're important to us as a system to be ready for the new science standards, to teach the computer science standards, to get these things done. We're going to do them anyway. So it's important that you know that, because whether or not they end up in a strategic plan is secondary to the fact that it's important that our Bethel Park students get these experiences, get these curriculum, get this stuff right, and get it done anyway, I guess is the word I'm looking to say, is we're going to do it anyway.
Well,
Okay, so-
I think giving attention to the plan mid-year is important. I mean, we have made this kind of a living document. We've made it our kind of our operating manual, as opposed to what Mandy's going to talk about, that we approve and then don't look at it again for 5 years.
It's amazing.
It's very much aligned with the strategic plan, and we really hope
Okay.
that it can be a living document.
Okay, well, that's good. It wasn't in the past, but it's maybe because we have a strategic plan now. Yeah.
So there is one piece of this that I wanted to segue into at this point in time, because we had a task force write the goals from the DEI committee. They they were a task force that wrote the goals and helped us put our radar on to the issues that needed to be addressed. They evolved over the last, say, 12 months to be more of an oversight body. They were satisfied with the progress that was made on the goals, to the point now where they wanted to know how are those things affecting student experience, and giving more of a progress report from our administration to the members of the task force. We've broadened the lens with this new revision to the strategic plan, and the combination of those buckets together, that I would advocate that maybe we restart that task force, but give it a different spin altogether, that it's more about the student experience, and that the task force includes representatives from our students and our parent group, administrators, board members, as we had before, maybe even a little more representation, more people involved in it, and have that task force, that forum, be a repeat of that work that they did focused narrowly on the DEI committee, and let it be more about the entire student experience, and have more students participate, and maybe even bringing more representative groups in to speak to the committee about their experience. And so I'm looking for the blessing to get that started, to refresh that group, to solicit some members of the board to participate, and then start getting students to participate, and having these recurring quarterly meetings to hear from our students about their experience and what we need to be doing differently in Bethel Park. And it's not going to be limited to just one subset of the school. We want to hear from all students and their experience.
Yeah, and I think if we could map out mission goals, things like that, before we just open everything up to a whole bunch of, we want to make sure that people sign up for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Know what's going to be expected of them, what we're trying to accomplish. And Mr. Scalzo had already reached out, Ms. Hoppy, to kind of help with that. Are you three okay?
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good way to start, yeah.
The very first step of coming up with mission and goals,
Yeah.
scope, things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay?
I would very much like to be involved in that conversation.
It's up to you. Okay. Okay, so this, then we'll have, Mr. Scalzo, there won't be any motion next week. We'll just leave it out for public comment for 30 days plus additional 30 days for the community to give you feedback, okay?
For the plan?
For the plan,
Yeah.
yeah. And
But then we
the
can
forum will,
have a discussion next time, bring your comments. And, if you have changes you want to make, things like that, let's debate those or additional questions. And then I would think the administration could go back, kind of work on those, kind of
Yeah.
come up with solutions. And then we'd have an updated plan to vote on the following in
sounds good to me.
March, April.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to number 5, presentation by Mrs. Figlioli on the state-required comprehensive plan. This plan will be available on our website for public review prior to adoption by the board in March.
The comprehensive plan is something that is required by the Department of Education for districts to submit every 3 years. So it is time for us to renew our plan by March 31st. So we will be posting this to the web for review from the public, review from the board. Would appreciate any feedback that anyone could give us. But essentially, we are approving this plan to run from 2024 to 2027. The state sets this process for us. There is a portal that we use, and it's a very in-depth plan. It's called the Comprehensive Planning Portal, and it really takes you through a lot of steps to get to the root of problems that the organization is facing, needs that you feel that the organization you're seeing repeated, and patterns, things like that. And it's really meant to be continuous improvement on leadership, on teaching, on learning. So there are opportunities for us to go in every year and make tweaks based on how things are going. And it is an iterative cycle, meaning it doesn't stop. We're constantly refining and looking at those goals to see what needs changed. And this is a graphic from the Department of Education. It is something that's grounded in educational research that all districts must comply with. I wanted to kind of give you a context for how to read this plan because it is a very lengthy plan. So I put some page numbers down in the corners. We can add this to board docs as well. I think it would be helpful for anyone in the public who is also reviewing the plan. So pages 3 and 4 are just a profile of the district, describes the district, describes our community, the demographics of the community. The mission and the vision statement are replicated from the strategic plan. You will see that there is nothing in this plan that is brand new but we really tried to pull things that are specific to teaching and learning. You're not going to see things related to human resources or the budget. So they recommend that we narrow in on 3 goals. They also really want you to consider how stakeholders can help you reach your goals. So we had to specifically lay out how we think students can play a role, staff, administrators, parents, and the community. The needs assessment is, like I said, it's very, very comprehensive. It's a deep dive into all of our data points, looking at academic achievement, student engagement, readiness to learn, instructional quality, LEA climate. It's a very, very comprehensive set of questions and ratings that we work together to work through and really try to be honest about where we are in this process. Things that are considered when you are looking at that data, you're looking at from the school level, comparing school to school. You're looking at grade levels, comparing specific grade levels to how they're performing not against each other as if they're competing, but you do identify grade levels that you see are high achieving, grade levels that you see are low achieving. And you also start to see some triangulation where data points are matching from what we're seeing in local assessments. So there were some really eye-opening things that came out of this needs assessment. We look very specifically at the subgroup, students with disabilities, students that are economically disadvantaged. So you go through all of this data, and each time you're going through a different data set, they ask you to reflect on what the strengths are from that data set, what the challenges are. And as you're going through this process, it's pulling everything into this final, when you get to the action planning. And so you have to analyze those strengths and challenges, and you have to prioritize. So they recommend that you only choose 3. So we were able to narrow it down to 3 different goals and specific actions that we're going to take with a few little very important sub-goals. But again, this is all very much in line with the strategic plan, but they are very specific about timelines, action steps, resources, things like that. So pages 16 through 25 are going to really break down those goals and the action steps that we'll be taking. The first goal, and we've made great progress in mapping curriculum, but part of the comprehensive plan is for us to say what is complete. Not all of the maps are complete, so that is definitely something that still needs work on. So we chose that as something to move over to the plan. One of the sub-goals in that, in something that doesn't exist right now, is a comprehensive STEAM curriculum that includes computer science. So that is underneath, that is a sub-action underneath that particular goal. The second one, which is something you've been hearing a lot from us about building and maintaining an MTSS system, a multi-tiered system of support. Underneath of that are 2 things that are very identified that we need to make gains in. That includes improving the math achievement and also aligning things to structured literacy. Pennsylvania refers to the science of reading at the requirements as structured literacy. So that is some language that you're going to hear often and hear a lot in the plan. And then institutionalizing a universal design for learning. And that it really is something that's all-encompassing, whether we are talking about children or we're talking about educating adults. It's very important that that is something that we embrace across the entire institution. So for each of those goals and sub-goals, you will then start to see it get unpacked. For each of those things, they want you to write a measurable goal statement, specific action steps. They want to know who is the person that is accountable for this. You will see that a lot of the accountability for these goals lies within the curriculum and instruction department, the special services department, principals, department facilitators. They want to know specifically what are the materials, resources, and supports that are needed. What do you expect the output to be? How are you going to monitor it, evaluate? Who's going to do that? How often? What will the method be? 3 big pieces that come at the end are then preparing for professional development. What are the things that the teachers have to know to be able to do these things? And like Dr. Walsh said, there are some things that the state requires us to do. There is the culturally responsive, and they're really embracing that as something that is inclusive, making sure that all students, whether it be race, whether it be ability, I think that when we hear the word culturally responsive, we start to think that it might be something specifically tied to race or gender, but it's really even things like Fred Rogers and the kindness initiatives that we have taken. Those are things that that build an inclusive culture for our staff. So you will see in the professional development plan that is addressed. The structured literacy training. It's not just the elementary teachers that need trained. There are certain certificated professionals that need trained. So that will be the elementary teachers, reading specialists, middle school teachers. Anyone who has an elementary certificate and isn't even using it will still have to take structured literacy training. They're trauma-informed. We are required to do that every 3 years for at least 1 hour. So you will see in the professional development plan not only those things that are required by the state, but also the things that we intend to do centered around curriculum mapping, MTSS, and universal design for learning. The communication plan also outlines how we will communicate that we've reached these goals. And something else that has to be submitted for the board approval in conjunction with the comprehensive plan is the induction plan. It's something that we're very proud of, something that Dr. Walsh had worked very hard on. Early on in his superintendent career, it's something that we do in-house that involves a lot of the principals participating, sharing expertise with staff. It's a 3-year plan. A 2-year plan is required, but our induction does take teachers on a 3-year journey just to make sure they have the supports that they need. So that will also be uploaded with the comprehensive plan for their approval. And that is all. Like I said, it is a very lengthy document, but I tried to just set some context for you so that you understood what you were reading as you move through the document. And same thing, anyone in the public or the board that has questions, concerns, feedback, we have, plenty of time to make adjustments, so we really welcome the feedback.
One comment I had, just maybe an observation that probably applies to our strategic plan also, is that a lot of the goals are activity-based, like things we're going to do. Should we try to be more bold and try to measure ourselves in terms of performance goals? And there is one in there, and it's the math. By 2027, all student groups, grades 3 through 8, will increase achievement by 10%. That's a performance-based goal. Most of the others are activity-based goals. Would it make more sense to be a little bit more bold on some of these and talk about results?
We can absolutely do that. Reading, we are closer to our statewide goal for reading. On average, it varies between 6 and 10%. Math, the state in general is very far off the mark. So I would love for us to not so much look at proficiency in reading, because we're really almost back to pre-COVID performance, but rather what does that look like in the classrooms? If you're an administrator, and you're walking into a classroom, what does that look like when we know that they have adopted proficiency literacy? So it may not, for reading, be strictly based on the assessments, but how we observe that those principles are in place in the classrooms.
Yeah.
Sorry, this mic wasn't on.
So my question is, I'm watching it happen as Teachers College, where I work, is moving forward, but state of Pennsylvania has a 2025 or 2026 deadline for the science of reading and literacy. Are we on track to meet that?
Absolutely, yes. We started this year we've already trained the K-2 teachers and the reading specialists, and then next year we will train the rest of the certificated people. So that will be the 3 to 5 teachers, middle school teachers, anybody who has an elementary certificate.
There are high school students that have, or high school teachers that have reading as their justification. Do they have to be also?
Not reading. I don't want to misspeak. In the comprehensive plan, I listed specifically what the state requires, but it's not just elementary teachers. If you have
Correct. That's where I was,
yes, we intend to have this done by the end of next year.
Okay, so we're a year ahead.
Half a year ahead.
Mandy, do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Sorry, Beth.
Yeah, so the 3 years start this year, and it's a rolling 3 years. And so we have 3 years, and it is really important that when we are training teachers, we are training them for things that are usable in their classrooms for the certificates that they have. So we want to specialize that training for what they are currently teaching. There will be incidents where teachers may have a special education certificate but are not teaching special education, but we do need to train all teachers with a special education certificate in the science of reading. And so we will use our best judgment to put those staff members into a group so that we're ensuring we're differentiating that kind of training for the teachers. So you are correct. There will be some high school teachers that go through this training. There will be some middle school teachers that go through this training that are not currently teaching English or reading or working as reading specialists. And so we have started to look at those, how best we can group those people. We already have started to plan our professional development for next year. So we are working on that to make sure it's meaningful for the different groups of teachers.
Okay, and I know that the 6 through 8 curriculum does focus in the ELA on the science of reading. I believe what we're looking at for K to 5 then will also focus on the literacy component for the science of reading that Pennsylvania is requiring, correct?
Correct. At the K-2 level, there will be a specific instructional component that is what they call the skills, and that's that phonemic awareness, that word recognition, that word building. And then there will be a knowledge component that works on that vocabulary, the background knowledge, the comprehension, and those types of things. And then it becomes more of a merge in the 3 through 5, but there are still very distinct instructional patterns, sequences, vertical alignment to make sure that it is explicit instruction for all students. Yes, and we'll be bringing that to the board in the next couple months.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Page 22 of the comprehensive plan has exactly who that audience is. That is instructional certificates in early childhood education, elementary, middle level, pre-K through 12 special education teachers, English as a second language, and reading specialists.
Pre-K to 12 was what I wanted to make sure we were inclusive, because that is the thing that of a lot of our teachers that don't do it.
Yep. That is all of the special education teachers, pre-K to 12. And there's also very specific things that must be included in the training components that we're required to follow.
And then I'm going to just put it on the radar screen that any new hires moving forward either already have to have it by 2026 on their transcripts, or we have to speed that process.
Yes, that will be something that will be addressed in induction. We know that next year we'll be training our staff, but thereafter, if it will be just something that we have to collect, like clearances. It's something that if they
Correct.
don't have, that we need to make sure that they get it. So
Right,
we
and
will
they
have to
don't
put
have
something in
3
place.
years to get it either. Okay, just wanted to make sure we were all clear on that.
Thank you so much for all your work on this. It's amazing. And
Thanks.
I love that we have some challenge, and we're acknowledging our challenge and our strength, and we're building actual plans. It is very exciting. And I've read a lot of comprehensive plans. The best one I've read.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was a
You're
lot of work
welcome.
you all put into it. Thank you.
I want to thank the administrative team too, because it was something that we were working on in conjunction with the strategic plan. Just wanted it to be more narrowly focused on teaching and learning.
Yeah.
Bless
No,
you.
It is very aligned with that, and it's the best I've seen. Like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I sat in on the process, and it was a 100-page document that, I don't know, said nothing, okay? It was, yeah. Yeah, you just check a box, yeah, and send it in, yeah.
The strategic plan, going through that process gives you really firm knowledge to build that off of.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Number 6, professional development. Number 7, school-sponsored overnight educational activities. Number 8, memorandum of understanding with Robert Morris University. And number 9, dual credit agreement with the University of Pittsburgh. Open it up for discussion. Any questions?
So my question is with Robert Morris and University of Pittsburgh, they're both the same as what we're already doing with Chatham, just giving students more options?
Yes, short answer.
So high school parents, pay attention as we start that course
Test.
selection.
There you go. Yeah, so we've had a longstanding relationship with the University of Pittsburgh. As Mrs. Figlioli was doing this report, traditionally Pitt in the past did not have a formal agreement, so we are just re-upping our agreement. We have a lot of courses in the math and computer science area that go through a Pitt CHS dual credit that students can take courses in their high school classes with our teachers that are certified and have a mentor at the University of Pittsburgh, and then they can pay and receive credit for that, very similar to the new MOU agreement we established with Carlo, with Robert Morris. In just trying to broaden that horizon in the CHS offerings, I think it makes us very unique at Bethel Park. In addition to AP courses, these CHSs are guaranteed letter grades if they meet the requirements of the college. So where Carlo had a lot of liberal arts, our APs, and child development and education programs, Pitt has our math and computer science. Robert Morris approved one of our computer integrated manufacturing program and has a very well-renowned business, marketing, and engineering program that we would look to cover that. So we're really just trying to create additional opportunities. I don't see us broadening too much beyond this, but this would kind of cover and encompass a lot of the opportunities. So these agreements are pretty standard with the university to local high schools and other participating ones in the area. And they all, teachers, requirements, courses, all go through review. And if we qualify, we can then offer those courses to our students.
Any other questions on on the items 6 through 9? All right, I recommend placing items 6 through 9 on the consent agenda.
Any objections?
We'll actually put item 2 on there too, if you're going to accept.
I mentioned that earlier, but 2 as well, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. McGregor, can you take the Personnel Committee item?
Sure. Tonight, there are 7 items underneath personnel. I'll read them. Number 1, approval of extra duty responsibility program 2324. Number 2, the acceptance of resignations. Number 3, appointment of personnel. Number 4, approval of unpaid leave of absence. Number 5, changes to the extracurricular pay schedule, the current positions. Number 6, approval of administration tuition reimbursement. And number 7, approval of paid intern. Any discussion, questions, concerns?
Number 7, Dr. Shuzon, it is the same person that we've had in the past do the additional school psychologist testing, correct?
That's correct, yeah. It's the same one we've been doing for year after year.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button.
I just wanted to make sure so there was consistency.
Yes.
Okay. Anything
Question,
else?
you have a question on 3C, the security officer. I'm just recalling, did we advertise that?
That's a sub.
Did we advertise it?
No, that was somebody in-house that took the training to be a.
So we did advertise?
No.
Okay. I'd like to see this advertised because maybe we have other better candidates than even for a sub position, you know.
Yeah, okay. We really don't advertise. That was somebody in-house that came to us, Mr. McCausland, that said that they'd be interested if they took the test. And
Well, you know, I like I said, there's possibility maybe other candidates that if we have an opening, and obviously maybe we sit there and review it and take a look and maybe advertise and see. There's nothing wrong with having a sub list,
Yeah.
you know, but maybe there are other candidates who are qualified. I take it as a candidate qualified.
The candidate took the test, yes.
Yeah, she's naturally trained.
All right, but still, so it's an internal, I saw the name, it's an internal secretary.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking if maybe we can do a little bit, someone with a little bit more experience. So I'd like at this point, maybe hold off on that, take a review it and see whether it's worth posting and see if there's anybody else. If we have a need, maybe we get a better candidate, if there's one available.
All right, I'm not sure how to hold off just on C. So you guys got to talk me through this one. So we're looking at moving 1 through 7, but hold out on C on number 3.
Yeah, I guess, I think we
I'm
should
not
be able to
sure I
handle-
understand why we're holding off a sub. I mean, she's just there to help us out when we need to fill a spot.
Maybe we get someone a little bit more qualified than the person that is in there.
I think that maybe the misunderstanding is it wasn't a posted position ever, correct?
We don't typically post for substitutes.
And I can see, but maybe in consideration, let's post and see if we have a sub list. Let's have a sub list and see if we can get someone best candidate available.
So could that person stay on the sub list
Oh.
even if you get more people?
Well, let's see, again, let's have that conversation of what kind of sub list we're going to have, because, you know.
So, and to clarify, this is for a security officer position. not a school police force.
Correct.
And we normally don't have subs for school security. So in a sense, this is an added benefit
That's correct.
that we have someone in-house who is NASRO trained and did pass the test.
That's
and
correct.
could function as a sub. I agree with Buffy. I mean, maybe if we want to, if you would like to deepen your sub bench, I guess.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, leave it and add more people who can, like, you could just, if the person's gonna sub no matter what, you don't have to pull it. That's all I'm saying, unless the person is never subbing. But as a teacher, we never have subs. And truly, I mean, I think Darren and Vince can agree that if they have subs, they would rather have a sub in there than nobody. But that's just, I mean.
Well, Jim, is your request, I think we can split this into two items. If you'd like that one left off and have a separate vote, we can do that.
Sure.
Would you like that?
Sure.
So can you take appointment personnel, make it kind of two parts? One goes on the consent agenda, the other one is off, and the only part that is on the, on the regular individual voting agenda is C.
C.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Is that good for you? Is that good?
Okay, let me see if I get this correct. So I'm recommending to the consent agenda.
Just do what he said.
1 through 7, with the exception of 3C. So 1 through 7, including 3A, 3B, and holding off on 3C.
Right, yes.
See, I got this down now. That was nice. All right. Thank you. I'll be here all night.
You might be at the rate we're going, yeah.
Blame that on Mandy.
Okay, Finance Committee items.
For finance, there are 14 items. February 24, salary and bills. January 2024, financial report, the summary of cash investments and operating budget financial report. Number 3 is budgetary transfers. Number 4 is payment for the new elementary school to Macero for $55,596.72. Payment for Independence Middle School Phase 2 renovations to Site Logic for $774,227. Payment for Independence Middle School Phase 2 renovations to the Hayes Design Group for $33,450.60. Approval of the performance service agreement amended with Hayes Design Group to design and consulting work for Phase 3 of the renovations for Independence Middle School. Renewal of the postage meter lease agreement. Payment for the new K-5 elementary school project to HRG for $5,178.26. The lease agreement with Allegheny Intermediate Unit for pre-K counts. The classroom at George Washington Elementary School. Payment for the K-5 elementary school project for Mid-Atlantic LLC for $5,173.75. Adoption of the Allegheny Intermediate Unit Resolution, number 2-2023 for policies and procedures. Number 13 is items declared unused and unnecessary, and those are attached. And then item 14 is for information only. It is your IMS Fund 31, IMS Fund 32, and the new elementary school Fund 39. I do have one question. The Allegheny Intermediate Unit, are we moving them from William Penn to Washington, or was that move made last year, or?
Yeah, it was made last year.
That's, okay, I just need a clarification. Thank you. I move all 14 items unless anybody has any questions, concerns, or?
No? Any questions, comments? Anybody want any withheld? Okay. And Ms. Hoppy, Policy Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Christensen. We have 5 items, mostly discussion items. I have been swimming in these policies, lots of revisions. Number 1, there are 3 policies that were revised: graduation, records management, and transportation. You can go in and read about those. Basically, most of these have to do with item number 2, Policy 254, educational opportunity for military children. So this is a new policy, I believe. This is not a revision. And so those revisions are happening to align with this new policy, as well as a lot of the ARs that are below. The language has been changed to align with the policy for educational opportunity for military children. And because those children, those families are transient, a lot of times moving from place to place, a lot of this has to do with accelerated enrollment for them in our district to get them, consistent education as they're moving around. Dr. Walsh, do you have anything to add?
No, you did great. Thank you. The 3 items there, those are just ARs that, the one that is not associated with the military families is a policy to support the administration of the cameras and sidearm stop signals and how that procedurally would work if we have a violator that passes a school bus with the red lights flashing. It's an administrative regulation.
Any comments, questions? No? Okay. Other, discussion only, school board trustee nominations for a really long acronym. What is that for?
ASHIC stands for the Allegheny
Oh, the health insurance
County
one, yeah.
School Health Insurance Consortium. They have 4 different regions that school districts make up. We have to sit in the southern region. If you wish, as a board, to nominate someone from this board to sit on that board, then if another district does the same with a member of their board, then there will be an election held where the districts will get 1 vote each for whomever they wish who's been nominated from that region to sit on that board. I can tell you as the chairman of that board that our meetings do take place typically twice a month on Thursdays, and they typically run from anywhere from 8 to 9:30 in the morning till like noon to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then there's often committee meetings on top of that. So it is a huge time commitment for someone who has employment full time. I'm just going to give you a heads up. So, but if you have the days free and you're interested, we certainly welcome. We've had some really great board members that have served on that trustee board, and if you're willing and it's something that's interesting to you, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any takers? You did a heck of a selling job.
Well,
there, Doug.
yeah, I can tell you that most of our meetings happen at South Point Golf Club, just because we're a member that belongs there, and we get placed really cheap. And then you get fed. I will tell you that. The meals are usually pretty good. Their chef there is pretty good. So, but you don't get paid. It's a non-paying position. Just like your job here is non-paying.
Yeah, got enough of those jobs. Okay, any questions on that? If none, any public comments on anything related to school business? 2 minutes. Any call-ins? No? Any board comments?
Congratulations to the basketball team that made it through the first round of playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Boys basketball team. Also, congratulations to all the boys and girls that played in their hockey tournaments over the President's Day weekend. There's a lot of second, third, and fourth graders coming back with trophies and medals. A lot of clubs had great weekends out of town. So congratulations to a lot of those elementary students.
Anything else? Any other comments?
I just wanted to say look out for musical tickets coming up soon, the high school musical. That runs March 13th through the 16th, so tickets should be available soon. Definitely check it out. Oh, middle school musical the week before. What are they doing?
High school musical.
Ah, who's on first?
Okay. A motion. Motion to adjourn. Second.